Thank you.
Mr. LeBlanc, what is your first reaction on this? Go ahead.
Look, we've looked at the bill. We support the bill in principle, but we believe that this bill could have been done earlier. It doesn't really create any new offences. It simply repackages current offences and does some minor revisions to the bail provisions. But I believe what needs to be said, as a British Columbian, I am absolutely disappointed that they have not acted on any of the requests or demands made by the British Columbia government. The remand 2-for-1 credit has been an issue for several years. This government should have acted on it. The electronic surveillance issue has been there for a long, long time. In fact, the Liberal government in 2005 brought a bill forward. That bill died on the order paper because of the election. This government hasn't seen fit to bring that forward. In terms of disclosure, we understand that's a burden. That needs to be streamlined. So we are actually generally in support of British Columbia's requests, and this government should have moved on it. The other point that I want to make is it is fine to work one end of the spectrum in terms of law enforcement. The other end of the spectrum is crime prevention. This government has absolutely miserably failed in advancing our agenda, Canadian agenda or Canadian issues on the crime prevention right across the country. They're not even spending their entire budget every year for the last couple of years on crime prevention. They don't have a comprehensive solution. Therefore, I think that is now the issue, along with the fact that they didn't bring forward any of the changes with respect to British Columbia's requests.
So you'll vote in support of this bill and bring no amendments to it?
Look, we haven't seen the finest details of them.
Well, you've got a bill in front of you. You've got a legal draft of the bill.
Yeah, but it's given us only a few hours. But we are in support of the bill. We are going to support it. If there are any minor changes, they can be made in the committee. We're not going to. Nobody ever obstructs justice bills that are needed, and when the Canadians demand that.
Si vous me permettez,
Please allow me to just add to this. As my colleague has rightly indicated, it is our intention to support the bill that the government has introduced today. We feel that these are modest measures, but nonetheless necessary, and for that reason, they will see in us partners keenly interested in speeding up the bill if the government asks us to do so. But we also feel that they've missed out on supporting the requests made by the government in British Columbia. We met with both ministers from BC today. They asked, for example, that we reduce that 2-for-1 deal where accused who are in prison prior to trial. We feel that we can reduce that. We also feel that we can modernize the whole issue of wiretapping and cell phones and BlackBerries. For police officers, this is an immense challenge. The government hasn't moved on that, and Minister Nicholson has said that he can only do one bill at a time. We feel that's not right, and that's not true. If the government decides to accept the requests of the BC government, we will act, and very quickly. Are you saying the government isn't going far enough? Well, we feel it's a good beginning. We will accept the bill that they've introduced. But if they're motivated in part by the crisis in BC at the moment, the BC government has made 3 substantial requests, and the Harper government hasn't reacted to them. For that matter, we feel that the BC government is reasonable, and we will be supporting the whole issue of reducing that 2-for-1 scale for those in prison prior to trial, and the whole issue of wiretapping.
Very specifically, quicker access to judicial wiretaps.
Absolutely.
In other words, as stuff is happening. And there's also the question of, after the fact, the lawful access to internet service providers for tracking communications. Do you support both appeals? Both? You would absolutely support better wiretaps and more lawful access?
Let me be, when we would go for yes, the answer is yes. Let me also say, not only would we support the government if they decided to finally act on the question of modernizing the electronic surveillance provisions, lawful access, we would support that. We would also support the government if they decided to reduce the 2-for-1 credit that people get if they're incarcerated or remanded before a trial. We think that has led to a loss of public confidence in the judicial system. We would also support streamlining the disclosure requirements as long as it doesn't affect the rights of the accused. Those are the 3 things the government, and wiretaps as well. And the government of British Columbia has requested those things, and the government appears to be hesitating. So we look forward to working with them not only on this bill, which we support, but also in accepting the government of British Columbia's request.
You don't have full liberty. You don't have full liberty.
Je parlais une question en français.
What about wiretapping? The Privacy Commissioner raised this issue. We will not proceed in an irresponsible manner in individuals' private lives, but we feel that if the government decides to modernize certain sections of the criminal code that haven't been changed in quite a while, including wiretapping, there are important technologies now that didn't exist before. The criminal code doesn't reflect the importance that one has. For example, where police forces can have access to whether it be cell phones, Blackberries or emails with the approval of a judge, of course. So if the government comes with reasonable ideas, we will support them with enthusiasm.
Look, we actually brought this legislation forward in 2005. This government should do that more quickly. The government of British Columbia wants that legislation brought forward. We're in full support of their request. It has to be, of course, within the four corners of the Charter. Obviously, sometimes those details need to be worked out. But the fact is, this has been an issue for provincial attorneys general for a long time, as has been the 2-for-1 remand credit. They have not actually worked on that issue or on the electronic surveillance issue.